Oh, that was a messed up thing that it didn't let everybody back in. That was weird. And we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Whiskey Charlie, the War Game Chat, our monthly show on YouTube. I'm Mo from Mo's Game Table, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, or with my co-hosts, I should say, everybody's favorite Gimp with the Limp, the Gimpy Gamer, Nate Rogers. How's it going, Nate?
Doing great. Nice to see all you guys again.
And the War Game Wizard from Oz, Kev Sharp from the Big Board. How's it going, Kev?
It's all magic all the time.
All the time. And we have a trio from Lock and Load. We've got Dave Heath. We've got Sean Druelinger, the designer of Point Blank, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. And we have Devin Heinley, the OG, the original Grognard. Did I say it good enough?
You did. Beautiful.
You need a little bit. I just want to tell you something. Everybody doesn't know. It's not original. It's the original Gangsters. Really.
No.
I heard about that. I heard about that on a podcast he was on.
Hey, Kabuki.
Don't let him fool you.
There you go.
It's the OG. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So we got people looking forward to the chat. We've got Jay from North Idaho. And so we're going to talk about all things Point Blank, which is on Kickstarter and is now funded, which congratulations for that, guys. That was great to see. And it took a little longer than I expected. I expected that to fund pretty quick, but I think a little change you made definitely helped push it over the finish line.
Yeah, it still went slower than all the rest of them I've done and watched. I think it's COVID and it's people being out and it's summertime. It's middle of vacations. But I knew I
sounds like poor planning on launching the Kickstarter at the wrong time.
Of course not.
You know what?
I expected no one to be around. See?
Genius is sometimes underappreciated. Okay. Mo.
This is true.
All right. So there you go, Dave. Sticking up for you, buddy. By the way, got to give Dave a shout out. Just got a package in. I'd been gone out of town 3 days. Got my flights canceled. It was raining and miserable in the town I was in. I got home and boom, there was a big old box of Lock and Load goodies that I did a live stream on last night. But I'm going to do a special session on the Princeton game tomorrow or whenever I get to it, but pretty soon. So thank you, Dave, for sending me.
No problem at all.
Yeah, so.
Now, I just want to know, the public should know, he did not request them. I just sent them out of the goodness of my heart. No funds changed hands. No bags of drugs.
Yes, and I did not demand them. I did not, any of that. There was none of this. You will send me 4 copies. Yeah.
Well, I know. It's how I do that.
Did anyone else get the picture David included in my box? I thought it was just standard. There's a picture of David in a G-string. He had his
it's real special. Like that was special.
We're not called Lock and Load for nothing.
I thought that was just sent out to everybody. I guess I'm special.
I didn't get that. I've never felt so left out in my entire life, and happy for it.
One of our Lock and Load team like that.
We're looking for feedback for the Speedo calendar.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you didn't get my picture of me in my Speedo. It says Bondi Beach on the back. All of you think I'm joking.
No, we're laughing because it's a nervous laugh.
Yeah. He's going to stand up and there's going to be the Speedo. Oh, man. I don't have redaction software on this computer. I can't do anything about it. So continue on with the talk about Point Blank, getting things started and then getting it funded. Dave, that's your cue. That's your cue.
No, it's a funny thing. I have to tell you, we did World at War, worked out all the Kickstarter goals, put them online, and it took off like a bat out of hell. Okay, this Space Infantry did the same thing, and what I've noticed is World at War 85. We did like an early bird if you get the first 100 or something like that. You get a little bit cheaper. Well, when I did Space Infantry, oh dear God. The people that came out of the woodwork, I don't not fund any Kickstarters that have an early bird or this or that or the other thing. And then we turned around and this one didn't put the early bird on there. Now no one complained about that, and they didn't like that their solitaire was so far up the line. But that's exactly what we did with World at War 85. So I was just following the format that worked the last time. It wasn't that we were trying to maneuver it. But you know what? This is good to be the king. One of the few times. And, enough people said something. Sean called me up. What the hell are you doing? And then I talked it with Devin and some Blackwell, and we just said, you know what? What stops us from moving it down?
Right.
So I just moved it down. And so when we hit 21,000, which is only $1,000 past funding, the solitaire is available. And, I made sure not to put what I would call gimmicky items up there. We don't have no lock and load calendar, nothing that's kind of not game related.
That's a 100K stretch goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're only $500 away from the solo stretch goal. Just drop that in there.
So what we're going to do with that is all the stretch goals have been done. Sean will keep tweaking until I take it from his cold dead hands and hand it to the printer. But he's got all the add-ons are done, the cards are designed, the artwork's been finished, they've been play tested. So people say, what took you so long? Well, that's what takes us so long. Sean and I do not want to be doing a Kickstarter and then saying, yeah, you got to wait, 10 more months for us to develop it.
There it is right there. It's as Sean was saying, just a little under $500 will get the G-string picture of Kev and David together, as well as the solitaire.
On the beach.
Yeah, on the beach, as well as the solitaire module. And we've got, let's see, what are you up to now? 19 days to go and 242 backers.
Yeah, that was the other thing, Dewey, too. I read everybody that says, 30 days is kind of too long. So we made it so it falls under 3 pay periods. If you get, 3 weeks, basically. So it takes, anyone surprised can plan, but it doesn't drag it out longer than it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that's the best route to go with it. I mean, me and you have talked about this before, but there are times where, I want to get a Kickstarter, but they're running a short one, only a couple of weeks, and I've spent my fund money for the month, right? So it's either feed the kids or get the Kickstarter, and the wife doesn't like it when I say starve the kids, so I have to turn down the Kickstarter. When you stretch it out and you put it towards, at least hit the first of the month and then the middle of the month, pay period, I think that gives people more options. And I like the option of throw $1 on it. If I decide to back it later, I can do that. And then if I decide not to, I'm out $1. It's no big deal. So you got all the options there.
It's like going to the bar, throw $1.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I figured you wouldn't.
Yeah, I do have one thing to throw at you. I don't know if you guys can bring up that screen again of the Kickstarter page.
I can do that. Let's see here.
One of the things that Sean and Devin and I have discussed, we wanted to have stretch goals that are all game related, but we wanted to do something that was a little bit different and more, exciting, I would say. For Sean's, we got Brett, who's a phenomenal modeler. I think probably one of the best I've seen ever. But when you scroll down, you will see we got 2 busts that are hand painted by Brett, and we're using those as prizes. So we let people who care about that, they can do the collector's reward, which is literally just $10 more than the game. So everything you get is with the game, but you also have a chance to win one of these. And they're about 6-7 inches tall, probably about 3 to 4 feet wide, inches wide.
That's cool.
And Mo was like, man, that looks like Captain Winters on the left. It actually is.
No, Nate said that.
Yeah, Nate. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good.
So, but those, and it took. I didn't want to. I obviously can't buy one for everybody. They're like, they go between $500 and $600 a piece, normally. So I want to give a real big thank you to working with us. And if you're on Facebook, check him out. He's got some just outrageous looking stuff, and I highly recommend people checking it out.
Yeah, it's great detail. Beautiful paint job on those. Really,
way
really
better
sharp.
than I could do.
Yeah, I love the realism. I love that you can see the cold in the cheeks. You can see the red on the cheek and then the white, like they're really cold. Great job. Really brings them to life.
I mean, it really does look like that picture of him looking out over the fields. I think it was like Bastogne, that episode when he's like watching Lieutenant Dyke lead them in to get them all shot up and then send spears after. It really does look like they took the frame shot from like that scene and painted it up. He did a real good job with it.
Yeah.
Although I am
Fantastic job.
curious of what people think of that. I haven't had a whole lot of responses on it yet because I haven't seen other companies do that before. Because I kind of compared it to like a $10 raffle ticket, right? So usually you've got the guarantee, you know, multiple different tiers. Oh, you got the platinum tier, deluxe tier, all this other expansions they're throwing into it. This is just the game. You get the stretch goals either way you go. It's just a chance to win one of those busts. I haven't heard people saying, you know, good or bad. I kind of think it's a neat idea because it gives you the option. But if you don't want to, you can pay the cheaper amount and you're not losing anything.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Some statistics for you. 189 people backed the game, regular, you know, no collector's reward, and 40 backed the chance to win the model.
All right, so right now they've got 1 in 40 chance of winning. That's pretty good odds.
Yeah.
True. So now let's get right into the questions. Private Public has a question. Any info on how the solo works? Who wants to tackle that one? The designer?
Who, me?
Sean?
So solo is initially we started with 2 hands of cards, but that was too clunky to use. So if you're the player, you have a hand of cards, and the AEO, the artificial enemy opponent, if you're familiar with Lock and Load Tactical Solo, that's we use some of the same terminology from there, has a if it's on defense, it has a chart that you roll 2 dice on to determine the action, and the actions are skewed more towards defense in that table. And if you're on offense, the results of the die rolls are skewed more towards offense. And then once you have the actual command, there are flow charts that you use to kind of guide you through what unit will act and what it will do and who it will target and that sort of thing. If it's firing or where it will move. So if it's on defense, it may move towards a victory objective. It's on offense, it may move towards the objective or a defender, and it works pretty well. The issue is with point blank. Point blank, there's a lot you can do in it. So there's a lot of commands, a lot more than say Lock and Load Tactical, where you have more limited. So the flow charts are I'm trying to make them trim down so that they're clean and not too clunky. You're not flipping through charts all night, but because it's so complex with it's not I wouldn't call this a beginner game. I would say it's probably an intermediate game. It's not hard to play, but it does cover a lot of stuff. I mean, you're moving, you're throwing smoke, you're reconning, you're you can conceal yourselves, things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do. So the charts handle all those items.
All right, can I ask something here on that to expand on it? All right, so I've been poking around at it, doing the boot camps with it, and I'm not trying to call you out publicly, but I am curious about this. The flow of the game is controlled by the action deck, right? So the turn ends when the action deck runs out. Mm-hmm. Have you accounted for that in the solitaire module? So maybe reduce the deck a little bit to account for the fact that the enemy player is not going to be playing those action cards?
So every time it's the AEO's turn, you're going to burn a card off the top of the deck. It would be the equivalent if you had a hand of cards and he was playing a card. So you'd only be playing 1 card in the deck. And, of course, the action doesn't matter who's playing. It happens, and you burn cards through it that way. So if folks don't know what we're talking about, the action deck is a deck of actions that you use to command your troops. That action deck also keeps time. So if you go through the action deck, at the end of the action deck, it's either the end of the turn or the end of the scenario. When you're using your action deck and play, let's say, a fire command, you use the cards from the action deck to determine the results of the combat. Some combats can take up, 4 or 5 cards off the top of the deck. A melee would probably take a lot more cards, possibly 6, 7, 8, sometimes even 10 cards. So the concept of the whole game is the more action that's happening, the more closer to the end of the battle is going to occur. But if you're just sitting there plunking around, moving and stuff, the game's going to take longer because you're still positioning and moving around and doing that sort of stuff.
And then we had a question from John.
Nate, take care of it. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, that was a good one. That actually ties into what John was asking about. How is it different than DVG's Warfighter?
Yeah.
Oh, it's way different than DVG's Warfighter.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'm not trying to jump in here all the time, but I think I've had a fair amount of experience with the game. But Warfighter is much more linear, right? You're just moving from scene to scene to scene, going in a straight line, point A to point B. This is like if you expanded that out. So there is a map. There's sectors and areas that you're moving to so you can flank your opponent. There's covered arcs. All of that type of stuff is in the game, right? So it gives you that more hex encounter feel with just a card game. But I would equate Warfighter more as a RPG type in the fact that you have points and you use those points to outfit your troops with different weapons and armor and gear and equipment. You're not doing any of that on Point Blank.
But
Point Blank it's much more tactical than that.
It's also and this is not a dig against Warfighter. Warfighter is what it is, and it's a light beer and pretzels, have fun, move your guys down the track. You may find a bazooka right next to the tank you need to kill because it just happened to be there. Whereas this feels more, I would say, more serious in terms of a tactical game that's fun and approachable, but it's got more meat on the bones. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Like it's similar to Warfighter in the fact they're both card games, they're both military-esque, but that's about where the comparison ends. Right.
Well, Warfighter, like I said, it's very linear. You're going down one lane.
Right.
And here you actually have to have some, situational awareness. You have different lanes that you're going to be dealing with, not just the one. And there's line of sight and things like that too, which is actually kind of neat.
Yeah. You can get behind an enemy tank. You can shoot at its flank with a bazooka or RPG or whatever weapon you're using. Warfighter, you're not really experiencing that aspect. The Warfighter really is, it's more about outfitting your troops to complete the objective. And this is about using your troops tactically to meet the objective.
Jay
But you don't have to worry about what they're using.
Yeah,
Jay puts it perfectly. It's like an interactive movie.
Well, I think to me, it's more like dressing up your G.I. Joe and then setting it up, and versus getting a whole bunch of G.I. Joes that are already set up and then having a battle. That's the difference I see. But that's just me. I've only played that game a handful of times.
But it really is. If you made Lock and Load Tactical a card game, this is really close to like what you would get. Now, this isn't supposed to be a direct translation of that, but if you know Lock and Load Tactical, you're going to hit the ground running when it comes to Point Blank. You're going to understand some of the terminology and the words and everything else that's being used. And obviously, it's the same company, same publisher.
This is not true, John, because me and Nate ate all the crayons, so that went away. So that's why he had to come up with the other one for the busts. But there was another question here for Lock and Load Crew. Kabuki Kid asking, how developed do you make a game by the time it hits Kickstarter? 90% more or less?
I would say
great question.
I would say, technically speaking, it can go to print. It probably could go to print right when we do the Kickstarter. There are some exceptions to that. If we're tweaking the back of the text of the box cover, I don't consider that earth-shattering. That God forbid anyone drops dead, or it's going to delay the production. All the core designs, the cards, the maps of those maps, the rule books. All that stuff is done beforehand. I do my best to make sure that, actually, I shouldn't say we do our best to make sure.
I'll jump in and remove all doubt. It's 100% developed. It's been play tested with many folks at various conventions, on my gaming groups, solo. Folks have come over and we've, we started this out in 2017. Dave and I played it at Origins, the first run through. Dave hated it. He didn't like it at all. And it wasn't until we took it out on the floor, and I think it was one of the Ohio gaming groups. They started playing it, and they started liking it and getting really into it. So I think from there, Dave probably gave me a little leeway to keep developing it. So it's come a long way from that point, but the game is probably more like inspired from, say, like Upfront with Lock and Load Tactical sprinkled in. Upfront.
That was going to be my next question: is how big a either influence or creative spark was it for you? I'm assuming you're an Upfront fan and you've played, and so how does this all sort of come together? If someone owned Upfront or owns Upfront or has played Upfront, would they get excited about this game, or would they go, "Oh no, it's not that"?
I don't know if they would get. There's fans that like Squad Leader, and that's their lifestyle game, and that's all they play. Upfront maybe has some of that sprinkled in. I played Upfront when it came out. The Bonsai, I got a chance to play test it because I live in Maryland, so I'm in the breadbasket of the Avalon Hill Wargaming. Right. My mother, actually, who is French, I'm half French, she named all of the French soldiers for the issue of the General when those cards came out. So I'm very intimate with Upfront, and it's very near and dear to my heart. I like Upfront. I just didn't like the fact that it was individual men, and I didn't like the fact that they kind of just sat there and you kind of got closer or further away from folks. And I hated the fact that I'd get a handful of like terrain cards. I can't do anything. So I sat there and I said, well, if I was going to do a game like this, I would want to probably, take a look at those things and try to improve on those. So one of the things I did is the action deck doesn't have any terrain cards. The terrain card deck is separate, and the actual the terrain feature in the game is pretty unique, but not like Upfront. There is some screw you factors in there, so you can play terrain on folks or in sectors in front of them or around them if they're moving into them and stuff. So there's a little bit of that. But the other things up front is everybody can see each other. There's line of sight. Everybody's got line of sight in up front for the most part. Here, you have line of sight. It's engineered a little differently. Nate did a video on it, great video on line of sight, and some of it is very linear. If you're across from each other, you can see each other, but if you're on the other side of the map, you may or may not be able to see each other. There's a mechanic for that. So line of sight's a little different. But the thing that I wanted to eliminate was getting cards in your hand that you couldn't use. So one of the big things that I did is if you have an action that you can't use, you can do something called a discard action or spend action. So you take any card out of your hand and you discard it. And you can then use an action that's printed on one of the cards, of the unit cards that's on the map. And you can do an action with them. But when they're done, they have to turn sideways. You tap in Magic. They're spent. And they've done their action, but they're spent. And in order for them to get back into the game, they have to be readied. Or you wait till the end of the turn, and then everybody's readied. So I don't know if, Mo, if you have any graphics of the cards or anything like that. I sent you a couple pictures, and
I was trying to pull them up.
Putting you on the spot.
I don't think you can put those up because you sent PSDs unless you sent other ones.
See, that was actually something I noticed as I was doing my video series on it, is that I like that you put that aspect in. You're never really pinned in by what's in your hand, because that's what I was thinking at first when I started getting into it. I was like, well, this is just going to be luck dependent. If you draw shit cards, you're screwed. I'm like, well, no. And plus the fact that those action icons that are on the card, better units are going to have more action icons. They're going to have more things available to them. So you naturally have better troops be better with spend actions because they have more available to them. All right. You kind of understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, you understand what I'm saying. So I like that you put that in there so people aren't ever trapped. They always have options to them. I'll let you explain what the cards mean there.
Yeah, so here's a maybe make it a little bigger. There you go. You're looking at a AFV, and the gray circled icons on there, which is like an arrow, an explosion, a smoke, those are all actions that unit can do either through a play of a discard. What I was just explaining, you can discard a card and play one of those actions just on that unit. Or there's an action card in the game called a unit action, where you can play a unit action and you can play one of these icons also on the card, but it wouldn't spend at that point. So every card has a different set of icons on it. In this particular one, going from left to right, the arrow is a move, the explosion is a fire, the smoke it has smoke capability. The double stars there mean that it can put, I believe, smoke in its own hex and adjacent. There's a little chart for that. The little treads there is an overrun icon, and the grenade is an assault icon, which means you can move and fire. While we're looking at the card, a little T with the circle means it's turreted. The little oval next to it means it's tracked. There's a little the word Scherzen on there is short for the metal skirts that are on the side. That's a special ability for the tank.
Nice.
The blue 6 there is the morale for the tank crew. The black circled 3 is the HE firepower when you're firing at soft targets. The red triangle is machine guns, but it's bow mounted. So that's what the triangle. If it was a red circle, it would be 360. And the little superscripted 4 next to it is the range in sectors away that you can fire that weapon. The flag is a control flag, so objective. What's that? Yeah. So the objective cards, which are some of the things that you're going to fight over, have black and white flags on them, and there are criteria that you need to meet, have in that objective so that you can control that objective. So if you had an objective that had a black flag and a white flag, this vehicle would satisfy the black flag criteria for control. And then on the bottom is you have the armor, and you have the weapon capabilities for the armor piercing. So the red, yellow, white. The red stands for short range. The yellow is medium range, and the white is long range. The number to the left is, if you're familiar with Lock and Load Tactical, you do 2d6 check, try to hit 9 or less, and if you hit, then you pull another d6 check and add that penetration number to the right of it. And then the target will take the armored number and add a d6 check to that, and whoever has the higher number is going to survive or be destroyed.
Really nice layout. I've got to say, the artwork was fantastic.
Yeah, Shane Logan provided all that. He is the author of Old School Tactical.
Someone had I heard was complaining that the cards were too cluttered, and I just don't agree with that at all. For the amount of information that needs to be conveyed, and the unit is still clearly the most prominently displayed item on the card, and it's just around the periphery that you have the needed information shown. Yeah. So I think that's done very well for all the information that needs to be shown, especially for an AFV, armored fighting vehicle. A lot needs to be shown on there, and it's shown concisely. You understand, especially once you learn the symbols, exactly what you're looking at. It's easy to understand.
Yeah. Mo, do you have a squad or a support weapon we could look at?
Let me see if I can
shits and giggles. Be cool. And yeah, these I downloaded the rule book and all the rest of it and had a look, and the rule book seems like, it's one thing to look at it, another thing to use it in anger, right, while we're playing, but it seems extremely well laid out. The artwork is fantastic inside the rule booklet. Looks like a very, very polished finish, right? Versus some other rule books I've seen of recent that are allegedly going to Kickstarter soon. So, can you tell us about infantry?
Yeah, sure. So you're looking at Canadian infantry right now.
Hey.
This is a full infantry squad. They usually have 2 silhouettes on the card for full infantry. A half squad, there's half squads in the game, will have a red bar across the top of it, and we'll have 1 figure shown. Oh, we're looking at Batman.
Batman.
Yeah.
He makes an appearance. It's a
stretch goal.
There's a Adam West has his own card in here. Anyway, this is obviously has less stuff that you can do with infantry, but you have going left to right, a move, firing. You have smoke capability, and you have a question mark, which is a conceal ability. So. In the game, everybody starts concealed, but you can still shoot at everybody. So it's not a where you have to spot in order to shoot. The conceal just gives you an extra defense. So it gives you an extra +2 on your defense if you're concealed. If you're spotted, you lose that concealed defensive bonus. And if one person in a sector is spotted, they're all spotted in there. So there's no this one's spotted, but that one's not. It's not fiddly like that. I clean that up. So if you're in a sector with say 3 units and one of them decides to fire and they were all concealed at one time, they're all revealed. But in this case, if this unit wants to do a conceal, you can do a conceal attempt. You need to roll a 6. The little +2 is the modifier. It tells you how good they have at hiding themselves. Blue number is morale, and the red number is firing, and the superscripted 3 is the range. And the little white flag up there, that's the control flag that I was talking to you about. Our ordnance has black flags, and infantry have white. And there's some support weapons that have actual control flags on it too. So if you have a bazooka, it has a black flag on it. So you don't necessarily need a tank to satisfy an ordnance control criteria for an objective.
Nice.
And we got one more that we could show here. And I believe this is a crew. The Sergeant Ott.
Yeah, he's a leader. He's an armor leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he would be placed on a vehicle.
The thing I enjoyed most about playing this game is, and this is not to knock any other game, so I like always being able to do something. I mean, I don't think in any of the games I play with it, I've been stuck saying, "Oh, I need another card. Oh, I need another card." And I think that's very important if you want to keep playing. I've played some games where I've sat there and
Combat Commander.
I didn't say that.
I was waiting for Mo to say something. Mo's a hater.
I actually don't mind Combat Commander. I don't find that to be, but there's other card games you just sit there and if you don't get the right cards, you're losing just because you don't have something to do.
Combat Commander.
I like Combat Commander.
So do I. I like Combat Commander too.
And every card game has a little gaminess factor, including this one. But we're looking at Sergeant Ott. He's an armor unit, armor leader. He can only benefit armored units. There are infantry leaders that don't have anything on them. They're infantry. Here you're looking at a morale number. You're looking at the green number is a modifier, so they add 1 or subtract 1 for morale, depending on what type of action they're supporting. And then you have down the bottom there, you got that little white and black bar. That signifies that during an impulse, you could tap him to spin him 90 degrees to the right, and you can do one of those 2 actions. You can do a rally, or you could do a unit action. So by let's say you wanted to spend him and do a unit action on the vehicle that he's in, you could fire one of the activate one of the icons. You could activate one of the icons on the armored unit and perform that action, but the penalty would be the unit is spent after use. and you can use leaders in addition to the actions that you do in an impulse. So typically in an impulse, you're only doing one action. However, leaders can do actions in that same impulse as well. So you could technically, with Sergeant Ott, get 2 actions in one impulse out of your forces.
Nice.
Tell me his crew is called the Oddities.
No, I tried to use some real names out there. I know that we Lock and Load tend to use a lot of customer names and things like that, but it's too late to change the names, Dave. And I just decided to use classic names from folks in books that I've read and that sort of thing. So
no Corporal Sharp in this one. I got it. I understand.
No Corporal Sharp. No Major Druelinger or anything like that. No.
Okay. Well,
that's just sad.
1 star out of 5 for this bad boy. Then.
Yeah. wait, we're losing pledges.
That's great. No, look, I'm very, very interested in this. So tell me more about how did you come about with scenario development and stuff like that? So talk to us a little bit about that.
So I enjoy reading a lot of the Stackpole books, if you've ever read those. And they're chock full of small unit actions in there. And I pulled a lot of the scenarios that I put together out of there and transposed them. I wanted to kind of contain the scenarios from, say, a little after D-Day before Bulge. So everything that happened over the summer of 44 and, the fall, those were the books that I researched to try to put together scenarios for. So I use a lot of Stackpole books for that. There's probably a couple other books that I've read, but a lot of the books are, sort of high level and, maybe we have an individual battle in there.
And I'm sorry if I'm kind of jumping in here. If anyone else wants to ask a question, but so nationalities. Tell me. I know there's stretch goals and expansions for the British and expansions for this and that and the other, but would you see in the future being, obviously doing the East Front? Would you do Pacific? Would we get to Africa? Stuff like that?
I think so. I think with a lot of these type of games, a lot of folks like to work with different nationalities, and some have interest in some of the minor countries and things like that. And I think if you were going to do, say, an East Front game, you would probably do a core game with different terrains and that sort of thing. And if you were going to do Italy or Greece or North Africa, but if you're going to do something like, say, the Dutch or French, or not the Resistance, but French regulars from 40, or even Polish, you could use the same core game and maybe have an expansion aspect to it. That's a Dave decision.
So I'm curious about, from a business perspective here, Dave, because you've got, and I don't know what would be needed in terms of, would it just be cards and terrain that you would need to do for the add-on, and then that would make it a really much easier thing for you to produce at a price that would get people excited about, hey, I'm going to go get this expansion and this expansion and this expansion.
I try to make complete games over expansions, because if the complete game that's available, I won't mention any previous people who've done that, runs out, you have all these expansions that you can't play.
Right. And
I always hated that. I hated it for buying games. I hated it as a producer of games. So what is really required for you to play a game past Volume 1? It's a rule book, which is online. You don't really need that technically. It's scenarios, which you're going to need an expansion anyway, and it's cards. Okay? And you could technically make there's over 700, almost 800 cards in this thing when you're done.
700.
Yeah. So,
There's Jester. Hey, Jester, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Jester.
So to me, if you did 200 or 300 cards, and you put, I'm just picking on this, the Japanese and maybe, the British, or in the East Indies, you could easily make that add-on, and it's not as much of a production. But there's not a lot changing. I mean, the cards will be, I would put play array cards in it, but I would like it to be where, you know what, I hate Normandy. I don't like the theater necessarily, but I love the Pacific.
Right.
And I think you kind of screw the public, you screw the gamers, whatever you want to put it. When I have to buy Normandy in order to play the Pacific, why?
Well, if you were going to do a Pacific game, I would to be technical. You would have to probably do another core game, only because the terrain cards would be
right.
Well, even if you did the East Front, something that's still in Europe, or the Mediterranean front.
Even the East Front would probably be like that. Anything West Front, you could use the core game that exists today and fit in there.
Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about doing a specific section of the Western Front, okay, that probably fits a little bit better into an expansion.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking about like Heroes of the Pacific. You just released that cool little expansion, right? So it's 8 scenarios and a map, and it's awesome, right? So, you got to have the base game to play, but when I look at this with all the different nationalities, it just seemed to me that might be a natural set of easy expansions that, from a business perspective, would be great for your business and would satisfy the collector and satisfy the player as they grow their collection of cards and all that stuff.
Well, what we're doing, and this kind of falls in Devin's wheelhouse, but what we've decided to do with Lock and Load Tactical, because it's on the computer, okay, is make scenarios now that we have the editor available through the scenario editor, and then kind of back them out and put them into print form. That's what you got with Wake Island, or not Wake Island, For the Emperor.
Yeah.
Okay. Where there's no counters, but it's giving you new battles, sometimes maps or modified maps. So that is the whole idea with that. So yes, you can do that. Okay. And I'm more than happy to ask Sean to make some extra scenarios and make what we would call a Ziploc pack. But we're also going to make a lot of these modules we're making downloadable. So those who are in Europe, or those who don't want to actually buy the print and ship it, because shipping is so freaking outrageous, but I won't get on my soapbox with that now. You can just download it and print it yourself and be playing. So you still have to own the game, of course. But let's just say you're playing Tabletop Simulator. Hey, $15, $20. I download the PDF. I got all my scenarios, and I can go play.
I'll just say one aspect of it is if you have the core game and say you wanted to do a module with the Belgians or something like that, the unit cards that you play on the table don't mix with the action cards. So if they were different, or if they were paper and sleeve, technically, if you want to do a print and play, you could use those units for your game, and then you could just use the core game to run the actions and
right.
And it's not to say we can't have cards be part of an expansion. It just won't be 700 cards.
Oh, sure. I was just curious. It seems like a ideal module to be highly expandable, or whatever the right term is for that, right? So
yeah, it easily could, just like going back to Warfighter. You can expand it similar way. Obviously, it would be different because Warfighter. The one thing I don't like about Warfighter's expansions are they're set up in a way to get you to buy all of them, or at least multiple, because there's a little bit of everything in every car and every pack, rather than saying this is East Front, this is Pacific, or whatever. You're going to have the theater specific cards for that. You're going to have a mix of everything in there, and you can easily throw in here's your Pacific pack. Here's the faction for the Pacific. Here's the faction for the East Front. You can add in different things, and you can add in partisans, things like that, resistance fighters that you can add into your existing games, which would make very easy expansion packs. And that kind of dovetails into something that Kevin brought up, and you were talking about as well, Dave, with the PDFs. You have a release of March 22. How confident are you in being able to deliver in March 22 with the world shipping situation the way it is? We've talked about it before. It's a huge hot topic right now for everything, not just games. It's an issue that everybody's dealing with. So,
well, we have two things that we're doing. Okay. I've been talking with people and bankers, and I'm going to say I'm maybe 70% there on just pulling the trigger, buying a gigantic warehouse, and open up my print shop from there, and actually having people just run and print the games themselves. Okay. The shipping is outrageous. I just read an article the other day. Can't think of the name of the game, but they went from $5,000 a container to $40,000 a container.
Yep.
And now that sounds like a massive jump. So I'm going to call possible BS on that story.
Oh, it was the tower game we talked about the other
Dark Tower.
Yeah. No, but that's actually true. Containers are now $35K a pop, right?
Yeah, 35 to 40,000 easy.
Yeah.
So but I've talked, and I'm in talks with two printing companies here in the States that print games for a living, and I'm either going to buy my own presses and put them and do it myself, okay, or I'm going to hire these companies in the States. I mean, I'm still looking at China. Okay, it will make the games cost a bit more, but the delivery time will be a week or two from when they're done printing it, not 4 to 5, 6 months when you get it done in China and have to ship it over.
Yeah.
And I don't like. I mean, from a publisher side, I mean, Sean and Devin, they all knew UKEV and the rest of them. They'd sent that ship all the way down the coast of China. It was like on a world tour. I thought it was a cruise. Okay. Then they moved it over. They took another ship. They gave me the wrong ship name. It's going to Denmark. And where my game's going to, and that's Poland. Why are my games going to Poland? It's just craziness. And I'm paying arms and leg. I have talked to our distributors in Germany, France, Canada. The only country I don't have set up, believe it or not, Kev, is Australia. Where we're just going to ship them an allotment of games, and then they're going to ship it within the country. And that's the problem. And now Canada, just to give you more notes, Canada's getting ready to go on strike with their custom workers. So they don't even know if they can take the games now. So there's a lot of it, but like I said, I don't think it's something we can't overcome. Blackwell, who's a graphic guy, he's been talking to the printers. He's done a lot of nice, good work on it, and I do believe there's a solution there. And you know what? I'm not too shy to say it. I'll be very happy to print in the States. I've tried it once before. It didn't work as well as I would like. But I think if I do it myself, if it comes down to that, I think that will solve the problem. And you know what else it does? The game is printed. You pull the pallet about 20 feet over to the left, and that's a shipping bay. And you start shipping the game. So you're saving money on the cost of trucking. The trucking, we went from Denver to Pueblo. It's about a 2-hour drive. It was something like $3,000 or $4,000. And so that's it's just thanks to the gas prices now, God knows what that's at now. 2 years ago.
Well, if you or somebody decides to actually do that and get into the printing business, it was die cutting, and if you want to try to make your money back faster, you'd have to expand out from just doing lock and load publishing. Or I would think you'd want to do something more than just lock and load publishing and maybe publish for other things. And you'd have to have different dies to cut different counters as well as tokens. You could actually be a good solution for people inside the United States when China is becoming, increasingly difficult to deal with, and take some of that business away and maybe expand out. And then you have lock and load publishings all over the country. But think about it. You could theoretically turn a game around in 6 to 8 weeks from send into the printer, iron out all the details, get your proofs in, and then get it shipped to the customer in 6 to 8 weeks from the initial onset versus 6 to 8 months.
I will tell you what, Darren, who's, for those who don't know it, he's I know he says it's my name on the account, but it's actually Darren who's answering all the tech support. So I answer 1 in 1,000. He's answering all the rest of them. But Darren runs our shipping and runs our production, our in-house production that we do because we do a lot of our own stuff in-house. And he He has found a software where everyday gamers could actually publish their game by logging on. It's kind of restrictive in the sense that you're not going to be able to get like starship counters, star account. You have to get square or rounded or, circle, but they'll be limited that way. I'm not keen initially on doing other people's games because I don't want to listen to anybody. I don't want to schmuck it up and then have to deal with that because something I didn't anticipate. So I told Darren that I will consider that, but I want to make sure we do a couple of our own first to make sure we have modern software, the printing presses and everything else are quite expensive.
Yeah, they're also a skill set issue, right?
Yeah. So now I have to say that the ones that Blackwell talked to, they will either fly someone out to us and show us how to use it, or we can go out to them and they'll teach us. Now I will say this: what printing was probably even 10 years ago and back.
Yeah.
Really, you push a button now. So the whole big thing is, can my artist in Germany, Blackwell here in Colorado, can he upload the data to the press in such a way that we can say we want 50 copies of that? Yes, you got to make sure the right paper's in it and all that, and then have it print.
Right.
That's what they're promising me we can do. Now, if that's the case, it takes a lot of the mystic powers out of the way. So.
And then you could also do a lot of playtest kits for development as well, which would be nice, which would be real nice playtest kits, not just cobbled together. The person has to build it themselves, because anybody who's done a playtest kit themselves knows there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. And it's, it's going to look, varying degrees of skill is going to be involved. So you're going to have something that looks like a crap project and something that's going to look good. So this would be a great way of being able to send out kits to people when you're testing out stuff, because one of the last things you want to do is try a blind test on a game before you go to print.
Well, that's what the goal is, to have a customers be. Let's just say Kevin Sharp decides he's made the best game ever. Okay, he can upload his components, print out a couple of sets, or even publish it where it's on demand.
Right.
Yeah. And so we'll have to. I'm working on it, but in between everything else I get to do.
Yeah, well, you know what though? I think the world's changing a lot, and the technology is changing a lot, and at an accelerating rate. There are a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different means for you to get what you need at the quality you need, so that we can buy games from you guys at a price that's reasonable, and we don't have to wait a year and a half and we're at the behest of some dude who decides that they need to shut down a port or stop a printing press or just jack with us for whatever reason they want. And I think the more control you have over the business, the sort of vertical integration from design all the way through to end production and distribution, and marketing, that's awesome. So good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cost effective before to ship it, because it only costs a few $1,000s.
Right.
Now it's tens of thousands of dollars. And it's like, why pay that much when I can just buy my own damn equipment?
Yeah.
I looked at it before about 7-8 years ago, and the printing stuff wasn't there. It's a matter of, I'll give you an example. When we print counters in China, they don't charge you for the dies. It's included in the price of the die cutting or buying the counters. So you can make weird shaped counters and change things around. Here in the States, it's somewhere between $600 and $1,500 per die. Okay, so if you're going to make some type of die with some weird counters on it you may never see again, it kind of hurts your, how should we say, creativity possibly. So there's a lot of moving factors. You know what the other big deal is? The thickness of the chipboard. I mean, I love the counters we get from China now. I mean, I think they're still the thickest in the game industry that I've found. I haven't found anyone making thicker game counters yet.
Energy Empire.
No, I don't think it's as thick. Blackwell and I take this little thing and measure every counter we get a little hands on.
The only Energy Empire, the little meeple characters are
that doesn't count. That's
double.
Not counter, man.
That doesn't count.
It's a cardboard counter. That thing is thicker than shit.
It's a meeple. Doesn't count.
It's a meeple
block
counter.
Game is a thick counter.
It doesn't have a panzer. It's not a counter.
I'm gonna go with Kevin that one.
It's a counter.
The big thing is with like you guys were saying, it changes in the world. when things change, those who adapt are the ones who succeed. And that's what needs to happen here in this industry, I think, right now, is everyone's still stuck in the mindset of China, China, China. And maybe that's not going to be the answer, or maybe it still will, but it may take 2 to 3, 4 years. Can these companies sustain themselves for that long until everything, evens back out to where you're down to $3,000 a container like it was prior to that? And I don't think it'll ever go back down that low for at least several years with everything going on now. Or would it be better just to, okay, you're still going to be saving money by having it printed in the United States. You're going to pay more than you would in China, obviously, but it's going to be cheaper in the long run because your shipping costs are going to be down and you're going to get it a lot faster. So your product turnaround is going to be quicker.
And plus, you can run 3 shifts, 7 days a week, 365, and you can print for other people as well. So
exactly,
there's benefit there as well. Anyway, let's talk about Sean's game. I think there's something called Point Blank or something. There might be a Kickstarter going. I think someone ordered one.
John is the 190th backer, and right now it is right now at $20,701. So $300 away from the solo stretch goal. Let's make it happen in this show. $300 more.
That'd be awesome. Yep, 243.
Tell you, I feel like I'm on a telethon.
Make it happen. Make it happen.
All right, let's do that.
Kev will walk around in his Speedo.
Yeah.
For everyone to notice,
No. If you don't, Kev will walk around in his Speedo. So everybody pledge now.
Okay, Speedos, we're losing pledges now. So.
Well, but Sean, tell us a little bit about the. Well, no, let's ask Let's ask Devin. Put him on the spot here. He has been too quiet. Dev, you've played the game. You're going to be.
I have played it a few times.
Give us a run through of what you.
Thank you, Mike Anthony.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Let us know what you think, Dev. That you found the most different or enjoyable out of the game.
Well, definitely the first thing that struck me as different, and I think people are going to have to take some adjusting to get used to, is how the line of sight system works. That probably I spent the most time on working out how the line of sight system works. Once I got it. I mean, it made sense at that point, but it was just getting there that was that took me a little bit of time to get to. But once you get it, like I said, it's a really nice, elegant system. It's not overly complicated. Since the game is played basically on a grid, you would think a normal line of sight, you would be going from one grid to another grid and, seeing if there's anything that blocks the line of sight in the squares. No, it doesn't work like that. You have a 0 row, which is kind of no man's land. And you take your column and you draw from the unit that's firing to your 0 column, and you take your target if he's when he's probably in a different column, and draw from his cards to his 0 line. And that's where you figure out if there's any intervening or blocking or obstructing terrain. There's more to it than that. I mean, if you get beyond if you move and advance past the no man's land. So that took a little bit to get a hang of, but the combat system was real easy. I mean, it's Lock-and-Load Tactical, basically. When you get down to it, it's firepower plus modifiers plus a D6. Defender, his defensive modifier is D6, who rolls higher. If the attacker rolls higher, that's the difference that you roll for morale. The armor, actually, I kind of like really how the armor system works. It's easier than Lock-and-Load Tactical because you don't have the ordnance charts, but it's a very elegant way of doing it. And I think Sean's done a great job with taking Lock-and-Load Tactical and keeping enough of it there similar. There's people who know Lock-and-Load Tactical can jump into Point Blank with no problem.
Checks in the mail, Devin. Thank you.
Now we got a question here. We're going to have to, I guess, go back and give a little thumbnail in here for Jay, who missed earlier. He said, sell me on a solo because I'm uglier than Gimpy and no one will play with me. Well, we cannot help you on the looks department, but we can help you.
Jeez, Jay, just how ugly is Jay? I mean, I the pictures or it didn't happen.
Wow.
Okay. Look, from what they were commenting on, and I will say I haven't experimented with the solo components yet, but if it's like Sean's describing, that reminds me a lot of Lock-and-Load Tactical solo because it had the card deck, but it also had the player aids that had the tree line that you follow through to get the final order for the unit. So I understand the basic premise that they're using, and that sounds real similar to what I've played before. So you're going to have to, it'll generally tell you what the unit wants to do, but my guess is you're going to have to make a judgment call occasionally. So watching some of my old lock and load tactical playthroughs where I use the solo system might give you at least a general idea. And I'm going to try to get something up showing the solo side of Point Blank at some point, but it might be a little bit in the future because I'm a little swamped at the moment.
And we got one here from DW Gamer. I can actually take this one. Comparisons to Fields of Fire. You can play it and understand it in the same night.
Yeah, I was just going to say, who was going to say that?
I wanted to just touch on the solo system a little bit. So your action deck has single icons on them, but they also have, some of the action cards have double icons on them. And if you have a double icon action card, you can do both actions in any order. So what happened was when I was using 2d6 to determine what action the AEO was going to do, I had actually more actions combinations than I had dice. So what I did was I grouped them via pip combination. So I think if you roll an 8, like a 3 and a 5, you have a move action. But if you roll a 4 and a 4 pip, you have a move and a rally action. So I broke out the different combinations of pips to try to make different determinations of actions, but the actions are grouped together. So, there's like 3 combinations of an 8, so they're all move related. So that was sort of how you can get to the different actions on the die roll chart. And then,
but situational dependent, right? So like if they don't need to rally, they'll move to the next order on the list.
If you say it's a fire action and you don't have a eligible unit to fire, it guides you through and you end up doing something maybe like a discard action. And then the discard action then you can then go to the discard action flow chart and then resolve it there and figure out what discard action you're going to do. So line of sight, I wanted to so one of the things that some folks say that might be a little gamey is some of the terrain play. So you can really torque with your opponent in this game with terrain. If there's cards in the game, they're recon cards that allow you to draw 2 terrain cards out of the terrain deck, and you get to pick one and keep it. And during your upkeep phase, you can play a terrain card into next to your opponent or adjacent to your opponent, as long as one of your units is adjacent to it. So if, for instance, you were taking fire from a tank, you had a building, you could drop it in front of your troops, and all of a sudden your units are out of line of sight. People say, "Oh, that's really gamey." I go, "Well, yeah, it can be, but the sector is not. It's not like a hex. A hex usually is a 1-to-1 relationship with a terrain. So 1 hex wood terrain, 1 hex clear terrain, 1 hex building terrain. Here, a sector is more like a group of hexes, which can have different line of sight, different terrain available to them. So if you're in, say, a 50-meter hex or 50 meters of terrain, you may have clumps of trees, you may have a building, you may have brush.
Right.
And you can, in that sector, let's say you're in clear terrain, you don't like it, you can do a move action, which is called an in-sector move, where you stay in your sector and you can take out your existing terrain and put in new terrain to move that out. You have to do a move to do it, so you're actually moving, but you're not leaving the sector, and you're replacing the terrain that you were in.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're in a hex that's clear, but the hex right next to it has a building in it, so you're just moving from the clear hex to the building hex.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It's like that goofy ASL rule where you can run around the edge of the terrain.
Yeah, right? Bounding fire. Yeah, you're bounding. Yeah, bounding.
Night pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Board Game Bloke was asking how are national characteristics represented?
What was that?
How are national characteristics?
So there are some national characteristics in there. So, for instance, the Americans have plentiful ammo. So there's an out of ammo chance in the game where you may run out. The U.S. don't. Back in, they had so much of it. It's so much smoke to boot. They never really run out of it. The British have a really good morale structure. I think you get a chance to re-roll a die, but it's marked on the card. So the card actually tells you if you have the characteristic or not. The German SS have obviously a rally, benefit. Trying to think of some of the other ones. Some of the leaders have some unique characteristics that are, like so the French resistance are really good with. They can refuse any terrain. Well, one of the leaders can refuse any terrain. That's another thing. If you're moving and say someone throws a marsh on you or something like that, you can't refuse that terrain, so you have to go into it if you're moving towards that item. But there are some terrain that if you are moving and you're moving into a sector, you draw terrain. If you don't have any terrain in your hand, you have to draw terrain off the top of the deck, and you may get something that's not favorable, but it may be refusable. And if it's refusable, it will stay in front of you, but you can not move. You'll stay moving, but you're kind of searching around for something better, so you're still considered moving. And there's a function in the game where you can do a discard a card, and then you can remove the move action, so you can get your troops back into a static position.
They were asking, Jay was asking, is there a campaign game?
There are campaign scenarios that we were going to put together. I have them designed and set up. They're not in the current scenario book, but they would be linked. So I did a lot of campaign stuff for Nations at War, the Stalin's Triumph game, and I kind of linked them together. And there's like a points. You would get so many points for the next scenario depending on how well you did in the previous one. So there is that. One of the things that's in the game is design your own scenario. That's another thing, too, that hasn't gotten talked about much. But there are points that you can spend to go and buy troops and have duke it out with your opponent. So there are two different types of scenarios that you can run. There's a meeting engagement one where you're buying kind of equal points and then kind of duking it out that way. And then there is one where one opponent's a defender, one's an attacker, and I think the point ratio is like 3-1. So if you're the attacker, you have sometimes more points to spend than your defender. And there's some criteria on how you set up the map and things like that. So those are all in there.
And then Jester was asking David, when's the tactical fantasy game coming out again? Shouldn't be too much longer now. But you have to remember, when it comes to Jester, he has to get different card back colors.
I've been watching his show. You not like them when they're different colors. Yes,
they're different colors, and also you have to specify the difference between Algiers and Algeria. And yes, you're going to hear it on this show too. You'll never live that down, Jester. One's a city, one's a country.
Yeah. Hey, I may need to step away, so I sure. May be back, but I may not. But Sean, I have not met you before, so it was great chatting with you. And Devin and David, good to chat again. And you two knuckleheads, I'll talk to you soon. But I may be back. We'll see. All right?
Sounds good.
Sorry
for thank you. Nice to talk with you as well.
Bet you his wife's yelling at him in the background.
So John is saying it looks all good. Looking forward to it now. Unfortunately, we need another 45,000 to get Canadians, although I would assume this is a cumulative game. So next Kickstarter would continue where this left off. Now, that brings up a question. Would there be any movement on any of the stretch goals? Do you see any of that happening during the Kickstarter?
It comes down to how close we are to them. Okay. How far off we are from them. So I'm going to say, yes, it's possible, and definitely nothing I'm going to rule out.
And we got another pledge, Jay. He's number 255. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
We got to remember, you're going to see a lot of movement on the Kickstarter right there at the tail end of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it is, it's the biggest search. Yeah, the first couple of days, the last couple of days. But for those who appreciate it, I do like a nice 30-day Kickstarter, so the options are open to me. to get it whenever I feel like it. It gives me time to kind of float it to the wife, come up with an excuse of why I need this extra game.
You need an excuse to get a game from us? Come on. Your wife loves me. Come on.
Well, no. You guys are fine. I can just ask you and you'll send me stuff. That's great. Unfortunately, all the other companies don't do that yet.
That's true.
Fellas, we are $40 away from funding the
$34. Yep.
Oh, $34. Yep.
One more pledge will actually hit you there then.
Yeah. One more pledge, and that's why Kev jumped out. It's a surprise. He's going to put on a Speedo because when we hit that goal, he's going to come back and be like, "I'm back."
I think we should have a stretch goal, like a live waxing or something, maybe.
So you're volunteering for that, Sean?
Yeah, I probably something on me I can wax.
I hate it when someone says something like that and you get the mental image in your head because I just saw that and I can't unsee that, and that's just bad.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm gonna have nightmares.
Who are we waxing?
So
hey, it's a good thing that you took that break to go get your Speedo because we are $34 away from unlocking the solo stretch goal.
Actually, I think you might just hit it. Viper
Dave just pledged.
Thank you, Viper Dave.
Thank you very much, Viper Dave.
Hasn't recorded yet.
I guess there will be presents for Timmy and Sean's family.
How do I buy extra votes or extra tickets in the raffle? That's what I want.
The only way you could do that is by buying extra games. We thought of selling the raffle tickets separately, and we thought that someone might do that. I didn't realize it would be you, Kev. But
hey, look, I'm a big shot YouTuber. You should be sending me 3 copies of the game for free with 3 raffle tickets. Or not.
Anybody who gets a free game or works for the company cannot win the raffle. Just unofficial.
Of course. I played. That's why I pledged. Because I'm in with real money.
There you go.
So he's got skin in the game. He wants to be able to wear those Speedos on camera.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a shrink rip of the busts when I win them in my Speedo.
You're just gonna wear like one in the front and one in the back.
Hey, that would need to be slightly bigger than that. I don't know.
But make sure you turn the faces the right way.
Yeah.
Why'd you guys decide against it though, Dave?
What?
What just being able to buy the raffle tickets? Because like if I were eligible, I would buy just raffle tickets.
The whole object was supposed to be selling games, right? And I didn't want it to turn into a raffle, and
right.
And so what we really wanted, I wanted to do something that was different, unique. And actually, I'll give you an example for Devin's game, Heroes of the Bitter Harvest. I actually have it's one of 30. That's all there is of them. It's a painting, and I forget the name of the aircraft. What is it?
It's the Stremovik, EL2 Stremovik.
Right. It's an actual piece of metal. It's probably about that big, from a plane shot down in Russia during the war, and they tell you all about where they found the plane. I bought some other ones from other products I'm going to be doing this with. We have a Stuka one, and it says it went down during the Battle of Britain. It even tells you if the pilot survived, if they know. Sometimes they do. Right. Sometimes
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
What wargamer wouldn't appreciate that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so, but I didn't want to force it upon everybody.
Right.
I didn't want someone getting who doesn't care.
So what was really cool, and I know we don't want to talk about other publishers on this while we're talking about you guys, but there was a publisher that had a block game that they had 5 armor piercing, 5 HE, 88 millimeter rounds.
I remember that. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and they were obviously empty, but that you could buy the games in those. They sold all those, and they sold them for I think $800 a piece or something crazy like that. It's a $60 game, right? So that was kind of funky. I think people dig stuff like that, and it's a good novelty. It raises awareness. It gets people's attention, and that if they can't afford the big thing, they might at least just buy the regular game just because they.
Well, again, it was something to be cool, and it was $10 shouldn't make or break anybody. Hopefully,
sure.
Well, that's why Curse thing. Death Ride Kursk thing, when you get the whole thing itself, the entire game, it comes in its own giant ammo crate.
Right.
You know, which is like, and that's not cheap either. And
you talking
that game
Death Ride Kursk?
Yeah.
Yes, that will take you the rest of your life to play.
Yeah, I have one of those games, Death Ride. I think it's Totenkopf. I think that is the maps are so large they don't fit on any of my tables. I can play maybe part of it.
Yeah,
but it's a cool game.
Yeah, you need to rent a gym to be able to play that.
Interesting system. Well, there's a good question here.
That's one I've always wanted to try, Death Ride Kursk, and I just haven't been able to get to it yet.
Are you guys going to record or stream a 2-player playthrough? Joe Wood wants to know.
Yes, I am electing Devin. Okay. We actually have right now the I believe the TTS module is almost ready to go to Uwe. Blackwell's got all the map cards ready to go. So yeah, not only we're gonna, just so you guys know, not only we're gonna do a live play, probably have Devin kick Sean's backside in the game because designers never win their own games. But even after that, though, we're going to make available to the people who pledge the Vassal module / and or the Tabletop Simulator module.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
so
way to do it.
yeah, I'm happy to play online. With whoever wants to play, I can teach or do whatever.
Well, I think you guys should do a live playthrough because you guys know the game. And then what you should do is do a live teach through by bringing in someone that you teach them the game, or maybe even have you two guys teaching 2 other players, and you're just kind of like coaching. It's like The Voice or whatever. You recruit somebody, you bring them in, and they take them on your side. You're teaching them how to play the game, and then they play the game live. So you get some backer interaction too. Another idea.
It's like The Apprentice.
Exactly. You're fired.
The core of the game really isn't that hard. You can learn it in a short period of time. It's the extras, right? So learning how to move and fire and stuff, it's not hard. Moving is a little different in this game, I will say, though, because of the fact that it's started in one phase and completed in another phase, and it can be stopped there in the middle. So that's a little quirky. And the line of sight is a little different, but it has to be a little different because of the way the game's designed, because there's no other way to do it. Like if you're in a straight line, right? So if you're in the straight column or straight row, line of sight's basic. It's very easy to understand. But if you're not, if you're like in column A and someone you're firing at's column C or D, you can't just draw a laser line to it, right? It doesn't work that way. So that's why it's designed to trace to 0. So you're kind of abstracting where the line is between the units. And I think it works well for a game of this nature.
You got storms out by you, Nate?
It just started thunderstorming around me.
Yeah, because I saw the lightning behind you.
Yeah, it's coming down right now.
So I thought that was his fans in the background.
I know. I was like, is that paparazzi or is that, a thunderstorm going on there?
It's all right. I got to hop off here in just a minute myself anyway. So it's God's way of saying, hurry up, Gippy.
So the other question would be, aside from the live play, are you going to record that and post it on the Lock and Load YouTube page? So
we do that. Devin does that with everything, thank God.
Okay, good. So anybody who may miss the live play can watch the replay.
Yeah, anything we do live play, we record and post on YouTube for the people who may miss the initial playthrough.
Excellent.
Did you say when the tabletop was going to be ready? Was that going to be ready soon?
I would not be surprised if it's available. We're ready to let these guys play it by next week. Okay. We're much further along than most people think.
Yeah, because all of the digital components already exist, right? They just have to be translated.
I've got to get Sean to give me a scenario or 2. All of our tabletop simulator games come with a scenario or 2. So even if you don't know the game, don't know if you want to play the game, you can get the tabletop simulator. The rules are online on our online library. We're getting a lot of praise for that. You can download the rules from the online library. You can watch the boot camp videos by Nate. Okay, they're all in one spot, and you can download it, or you can even print it from the online library. Don't know why you do that when you can download it, but regardless, And then you can go play it by yourself, or with your friend, and see, hey, I like this idea, or I don't like it. It's always been our motto. We don't want you to buy something and be pissed off you didn't like it. I mean,
here's a question. You were talking about the online library and all. Is there any plans on porting this over to Steam? Not just Tabletop Simulator, but
it all depends how well it does. Right now, Lock and Load could use like another 4 sets of programmers, and for all the stuff that we have. So yeah, I would say I would love to put it honestly on Steam, but we got to find the right person to do it. So if anyone's listening, you're the right person, contact me.
There you go, and that way you get an opportunity to get the next level of games out there on to digital for. Well, let's see here if I can pull this up on screen.
David still thinks he works for Matrix.
There you go. We're currently at $20,966. The solo module will unlock and about another $34. So if you've been considering pledging, now's the time to do it because we're almost there. We'd like to do it before the show's over, and we're just about out of time. We got about maybe 4 or 5 minutes because we're going to be cutting off at the half hour. And just wanted to see if we can get any last bit of pledges in here because that would be great to have on the show.
One thing I wanted to mention about the game. So the game does have a map board that you use, but you don't necessarily need to use the map board. It's when I first initially designed it, it didn't have a map board. It used like a counter system. Actually, at the time, it was cards. So it was, you had a card that represented your area A and area B and area C, and you sort of were, kind of lined up in it. And then you had cards that represented your sectors. So we've replaced the cards with counters. So if you didn't want to use the map board and you wanted to, you were comfortable with the game, you could play the game with just the counters to mark where you are instead of actually on the map board. So the map board just made it easier to teach, and it was sort of this it sort of worked well with people's, how they were consuming the rules and stuff. So that's why we stuck with the map board. But ultimately, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. You have another ability. So I wanted just to throw that out there, just in case some folks were saying, "Well, God, the map boards are huge. I don't have that much table space." You can use a smaller table and just use the counter system to help to kind of track where you are.
Well, that ties into
if you're in a situation where you don't have a whole lot of table space, the counters do work exactly what he's talking about. You just have to be able to think about it abstractly in your mind, but it would take up roughly the amount of space you would have playing like a Magic the Gathering game, right? The cards between the two players would be all the space you need, with the counters right there representing, hey, this guy's on A1, this guy's on C3. Or 0 in no man's land in the middle, because that's all it is. 0 in the center, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 going back, and 1, 2, 3. I think it's up to 5, right? In each direction.
Yeah, five wide, and I think there's 4 deep on each side. So, but you don't necessarily. Each scenario may have a different scale too. It's not always 5 areas across or 4 sectors deep. So some scenarios are 3 areas wide, some are 4 areas wide. The bigger games are 5 areas, and that's the max. I mean, technically it's endless, but it's just too kludgy after that, because it's an I go you go game where you play an action, your opponent plays an action, and you're going back and forth through that. One thing I think is important to probably bring up too is the fatigue rule. So if your units perform a move action or a fire action, they'll generate a fatigue marker, which will be, and there's a level 1 and level 2. Vehicles don't get fatigue for moving, but infantry do. Vehicles get fatigue for firing because they're hooking shells out of there and loading and doing all that stuff. So then when they if you do another action, you'll gain another level of fatigue, and then you'll have some penalties against you. If you do an action at fatigue 2, you would find yourself spent, meaning that your you're now tired or you're reloading or whatever. So you turn your card sideways and they remain sideways until you actually play a ready card or a leader that you maybe have a ready action that you can ready each unit. And there's all kinds of different mechanics to help you get your troops readied. It's kind of a one of the things that I found in the game that, and a lot of times, is if you have a card game and you have a powerful stack of units, you can just sit there and just use that unit, and that's all you're going to use and plow through whatever. But it's not realistic that they wouldn't get tired or out of ammo or anything like that. So they slowly degrade, other troops slowly degrade, and it forces you to use all of your troops and think about how they work together, because they all have fatigue that they have to worry about. So there's a little bit of management in that, and that's sort of how that balances the game and keeps it real, and all your forces are actually key to your winning the game.
Yeah, we were talking about the map before. This is something I wanted to bring up. I know I've seen other people ask this. I even talked to Dave about this before the Kickstarter, about adding a neoprene mat, because I know a lot of people do love those, and Dave is like, no one cares about those. And then in 2018, we went WBC, and those ones for Atlantic Storm sold out in about 20 minutes. So
yeah, we don't want. Here's what we're trying to do, guys. When we print this, we're going to have these pre-boxed to ship. So in other words, you're going to have the game box, and then we're going to put them in a shipping box. So when they get to the warehouse, you literally got to take and throw on the sticker, and throw it into the cart to go out. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we didn't have, you can order any of our older games or any of the other stuff. The neoprene map or monster map or anything like that, if we do it, I'm not saying we're not, but if we do it, it'll be after the Kickstarter, and more than likely after the game ships. Okay, and again, the number one thing people don't like about Kickstarters is, you buy a game today, and if you're lucky, Christmas 2022, you might see it.
Yeah.
So we are looking at where can we speed up things. I mean, in all fairness, it took us 6 weeks to organize all the stuff that came in, get it boxed up, and get it out the door. Okay.
Sure.
And so it's just.
What about offering that as maybe for a limited time on the website?
Well, that's probably what we'll do.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it'll be a separate thing to ship. Now it may ship the same time as the game, but it's not going to be where we're taking 3 games from here and a map over here. The World at War, as much as I love that Kickstarter, obviously because it made decent money, it was a hell thing to put together, organize, package the right way. Someone had asked me about box. The box we're making this time is much more thicker, much more durable, reinforced. So we actually went to box breaking school and got schooled on why the box could break so easily, what and the way around it. So we made sure that the new box design does not have those flaws.
Good. Because I mean, to me, I think the best box when it comes to for size and for sturdy, for strength, without a doubt, has to be Fabrizio's boxes for Deadly Northern Lights and Under an Iron Sky. Those things are big. They're really, really sturdy boxes. And when you look at them, you think, oh, there's got to be 11 billion components in them. And there are, but it's not like it's super heavy components. Now, when you're talking cards, they get very heavy, very fast, and deceptively so. You think, these little cards, but you add in several hundred cards, and it gets pretty heavy. The box
Guys, the solo module is officially funded.
That's what I was waiting to see.
Thank you, everybody who's watching, for supporting the game. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
And there we go. 21,000. We are officially funded for the solitaire module. So that's pretty awesome. Everybody, thanks for getting that done here during the show. We wanted to see that happen, and we did. And that's perfect because we're just about out of time. So that's a great way to end the show. And thanks. I would say thanks to my co-host, but one bailed because he's getting hit with storms, and Kev, he bailed because he's got some company. But my co-hosts, Kevin, Nate, I really appreciate them being on. And of course, our special guests, Dave Heath, Devin Heinley, and Sean Druelinger from Lock and Load Publishing. Really appreciate you guys being on tonight, and appreciate everybody in the audience joining in tonight with your questions, and also for pledging for the project. So I think it'll be a great thing to have that solo module in there, and it's going to be a lot of fun playing that game. But thanks a lot, guys, and we will see you on the next show. Have a good night, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everybody.